Hi, and welcome to our third section. In this section, we will discuss data management in the serverless era. So, what we're going to see in this section is which services we can use to manage our data. Once we get to know them, we are going to see how we can integrate those services with Lambda function. And I think this is a really exciting part because once you can both run code and manage data, that means that you have an application and you are good to go and start actually developing serverless in the cloud. So this is the first point, that you have everything you need to do in order to develop your app. And after we're going to go to this through milestone, you are going to see how you can respond to data events within your AWS account. So maybe somebody is uploading an image into your S3 bucket and you want to do some manipulation on that. We are going to see these kind of scenarios. So the first video, we are going to introduce you the data services that are available. The first one is the AWS S3, which is simple storage service, and the AWS DynamoDB. And what we are going to do in this video is actually go to the console and see how much you can get from those services with just a few clicks away. So talking about S3, we are going to see three important things. The first being storing an object. Simply storing your objects that you need, your images, your files, your videos, everything that you need to have in order your application to run correctly, you can just store them. And because serverless and Lambda function is only about executing code, and you can only upload to Lambda function things that you can actually run, you can find yourself with a bit shortage of file system because you cannot access the file system within Lambda function. So S3 in somewhat is becoming the file system of the serverless. So let's say that you have a Lambda function that is requiring some configuration file, is requiring a certificate file. Anything like that, you may want to use S3 as your file system. And the last thing that is really important to know, that S3 can serve static website. And the key word here is static. You can upload your static files to your S3 and simply serve them. And let's start and see that in our console. So this is my console, and we are in the Amazon S3 again, simple storage service. And you can see here that I have a search bar, and to create another bucket and buckets that I already use, you can see something really interesting that we never saw before. You can see here the region that the S3 is found, because S3 is a global service. You do need to specify when you create a bucket in which region it's going to be created, but as a service in the console you can see everything from one place. So you can see when it was created, in which region it was provisioned, who can access it, whether it's public or not public, and the name of the bucket. Let's create a new bucket. So let's create a bucket, and pay attention that the bucket name should be a DNS compliant, because each S3 bucket is going to get its own special DNS name that you can just browse to. Because it's a browsable feature, it needs to be DNS compliant. So let's do Michael Serverless 1. So we have a bucket name. Of course, it has to be a unique name. After you chose your name, you can go ahead and choose your region. Any region is good. We will go with Ireland. If you want to copy settings from existing bucket, you can do that. And now we are creating it. And you can see that we are going to see a couple of options. The first being versioning. So you can keep for each object version of its changes. So if you have an object and you are uploading the first version and then the second version, and then you delete this object, you would see the three operations: the first upload, the second upload, and the delete. This is a great feature because you can go for each object and revert back to a different version. One thing to keep in mind, because you are keeping all the versions, you are keeping more data. So let's assume that you have a terabyte bucket and you have enabled versioning. That means that if you have done 2 or 3 times on each object, that means that it's going to be saved for not only 1 terabyte, for 2 or 3 terabytes. So keep in mind that the cost here it could be affected because the versioning. We can have server access logging. Every time somebody accesses your S3 bucket, you're gonna get a log for that. Tags, of course, you can always tag your resources in AWS. You can control the access to the bucket. You can have logs for only access to your bucket or for each object. That means when we are talking about auditing, and auditing is extremely important when understanding who is accessing what, you can have 2 levels of auditing. The first being auditing in the level of bucket access, or you can activate this feature that audits every object within your S3 bucket being audited. So that means even if someone is accessing a certain file in your S3, you are going to get a log file for that. So this is a very interesting feature, but it may cost more, of course. And of course, we can use encryption if you want our data to be encrypted. So just enable, choose your key, and it is encrypted. After that, we are going to set permission to our bucket. You can choose which user can access it. You can choose maybe there is another AWS account that can access this S3, or you can manage public permission and system permission in terms of log delivery. Okay, so we can review everything and we can create the bucket. Now AWS is creating the bucket for us and it has been created, and we can see a couple of other interesting things. So the most interesting thing for me is that we can host a static website, and that means that we don't need another server. We don't need an Nginx or an IIS or an Apache to serve out static files. We just put them in our bucket and we can just start working. So if I'm going to use this bucket to host file, this would be the endpoint. And what is the index document and the error document, and we can set rules for redirection. And the cool part is that you can set your DNS to any domain to use this bucket. So just load your files to here, map your domain in the DNS to this bucket, and there you have hosting your own website without making any code, any installation, anything. And we also have advanced settings, and I want to show you 3 of them, or at least talk about them. The first being requester pays. You pay for your own resources, but maybe you are doing some kind of integration that some other customer of yours is requesting data or posting data to your S3, and you can do that. They would pay for the transfer and not you, the owner of the bucket. So it could be a really interesting business model. So if you're hosting a lot of data and you want the requester who pulls the data to pay, you can use this feature. Another interesting feature is the events. You can receive events when specific events occurs in your bucket. So let's assume someone uploads something to your bucket and you want to be notified, you can do that. And when I'm saying notify, you could get an email or you can run your own Lambda function. And this is where we are going to see the integration between the S3 and the Lambda function. The last thing is the transfer acceleration. When you are going to upload data to your bucket, you want it to be fast. And there is a way to accelerate that. So let's assume that I am in Europe and I'm going to upload data to US. So again, this is a long distance and we are using the internet infrastructure to upload the data. Transfer acceleration is going to do something really interesting. We are not going to upload the data directly from Europe to US. What we are going to do, we are going to upload to our nearest AWS region. So if we're in Ireland, we are going to upload to the data to Ireland. And AWS is going to use their own infrastructure, their own communication between regions to transfer the data from Ireland to the US. And simply we are using the infrastructure of AWS between regions to accelerate our transfer. So this is what we can do with our S3 bucket. We can set permissions. In this management tab, we can do all kind of rules of how to behave with our data. If we want to expire objects, let's say after 30 days, this data is not relevant anymore, you can delete it or move it to another place. We can replicate data between regions, which is extremely important when talking about disaster recovery plans. We can get analytics about what's happening within our S3 in terms of size and utilization of storage. Metrics for that. Inventory, you can export CSV file telling you what do you have within your S3 bucket. So S3 bucket does a lot of things for us, and it's a great tool that you can utilize for so many features, and we are going to see how to integrate it with S3. Now we are going to talk about DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is a huge service that we can talk a lot about, but I want you to have a little taste just to understand the difference between S3 and DynamoDB. So the first difference is that S3 stores objects and files. DynamoDB is a database. You can query it, you can set indexes, and it's really an amazing tool. So basically, we can create any kind of table, and we have to specify what is the primary key. Let's say it's an ID, and we are going to create a new table. And once we create this table, we can now start working with this table. Because it is a DB, we want to query it and we want to integrate our code with this database. This is something specific to DynamoDB. It does not support SQL and anything like that. What can we do? We can manage streaming. Anytime that there is a change in our database, we can stream it in order to react to this change. We have provision that we are doing up to 5 read and writes per second. DynamoDB is serverless, but you do need to tell DynamoDB what kind of traffic are you going to expect, how much read and write capacity are you going to consume. And you can see that we use the default, which means 5 read and writes per second, and auto scaling is disabled. We will enable it later on in this course, and we can see the size and the item count. So here you can see the item. We can just create an item with the value 1, and we can add another number, let's say num2, and we can save that. We can see the data, and of course, since it's non-relational database, we can just add something. Let's add here another string, and we can add whatever we want here. We can see the matrix about what is happening with our database, and we can set alarms for anything that we want, the current capacity and its cost, indexes if you want to add, global tables, which means that you can actually create tables from one region replicating to another region, and with that making your data storage cross-region. So you can do a lot with DynamoDB, and we will talk about that more in this course. So what we want to do now is to take what we saw, to take DynamoDB and to take S3 and start integrate them into our Lambda function. And this is exactly what we are going to do in the next videos.